Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me for this, our Wednesday night preview, 5 games on the docket, are Nick Martin and Tim Kalinowski. Um, and gentlemen, with just 5 games on the schedule, we'll just skip right into the board. We'll go game by game, and we'll note which one is our best bet as we go along. But no need to do underdogs or anything like that. We'll keep it simple. Just get the puck deep and go to work. We'll start with the Devils and Rangers at Madison Square Garden. New Jersey plus 154. They are on a back-to-back. The Rangers are minus 185 here. They lost to Pittsburgh on Monday night at the Garden. This totals at 6.5. I do think that what happens on Tuesday night, maybe this is a cop out, but I do feel like what happens in Tuesday night for the Devils kind of has some impact here with this game against the Rangers. Like, they should always be up for a Rangers game, but you can totally see the air just getting kind of sucked out of their tires if the results don't go their way. They play the Penguins. Loss there does eliminate them if they from their very minute playoff chances. But just keep that in mind as we go over that. But in a vacuum, Nick, what are you thinking here between Blue Shirts and Devils?
I'm kind of leaning towards the Rangers, honestly. I feel like, you know, I expect them to win this game. They've been playing really consistently well. They had a letdown versus Pittsburgh. But aside from that, I really feel like they kind of have earned this price tag. I'm never a fan of fading the Devils. We've kind of talked about how they're just seemingly one of the toughest teams in the league to project when their game's clicking, the way they can possess the puck. They can beat anyone, but far too often we've just seen so many high danger breakdowns and soft play. So I kind of lean towards the Rangers finding a way in this one. If I don't get anything in pregame, I could definitely be interested in seeing how it's looking and going from there. Um, but yeah, it feels like the Devils are just, I don't know. I'm with you though. I am kind of interested in seeing how tonight's game goes as much as that is a cop out. But I just don't think I'm gonna want to try to touch too many Devils games down the stretch here. They really do feel like just so volatile. All year they've obviously played well under expectations for the roster. They'll bounce back for 2 games at a time. You think now that they're getting goaltending, maybe this is a team that's, significantly better than its record. And then you'll have 2 periods like we saw versus Buffalo where it's just pathetic. So obviously there's a lot of volatility with everything in the NHL, but the Devils more than most, I think, are pretty unpredictable.
Yeah, Leboff, you were alluding to the fact that I might be on the New Jersey Devils after I told you that I was willing to stand pat for the rest of the year, but I don't know here. You guys said I feel the same way about wanting to see what it looks like against Pittsburgh on Tuesday, but then I was saying to myself, well, what would I be looking for in that game that would give me a green light or a red light? And both of you guys kind of said the same thing, and I think it is worth saying out loud, like, what is it do we want to see? Like, I mean, if it's an absolute stinker against Pittsburgh, I would think to myself, oh, New Jersey, like when you're playing the Rangers rivalry, they've lost 3 times to them this year. It shouldn't matter what happens in that Pittsburgh game. But then it's like, if they play well, like kind of zig and zag. I don't know. I just as we sit here together, almost therapeutically, I would defer to you guys and ask for help on what you would want to see that would be encouraging or discouraging.
I think a solid game on the back end would be something I'd want to see. That blue line's kind of become a disaster. I don't think it should be as bad as it has been, but you got like top pairing Kevin Ball going on. John Marino struggled. So I think I'd like to see that. And then the other thing I question is if it's going to be Kakinen for sure, or if they'd maybe do Allen again if it ended up being
Yeah.
they won Tuesday night and they're then theoretically not completely dead. So that'd be something to watch. But yeah, I mean the Devils, I just continue to think that what they have should be a lot better than it is, but the blue line does have some guys that are playing pretty out of form. I don't think it's helped either that Green, they haven't really gotten the new coach bounce at all. If anything, I think they've actually maybe been worse, and they've had a few games where they won because of their goalie, which didn't happen like once under Ruff. Um, so yeah, that's I guess a conversation for another day. But I don't think Green's really turned anything around. I don't think he'll be back next year. So Yeah, I don't know. All this to say, I mean, I'm leaning Rags, like I said, but I think that's yeah, that's it for now.
There's also potential for this game to kind of just be a little bit of a gong show, I think, too, with the rivalry and the stuff
That is
that
true
like
with
the
all that
circus,
the
yeah,
Rampage stuff.
the
Yeah.
rampage stuff. I'm assuming that he won't play, but the Devils were talking about it. They've been talking about it for weeks, and
Play
they had,
him. Play him.
yeah,
We all need to
yeah,
see it on this Wednesday slate.
right, yeah. Um, so I think that there's some, you can maybe talk about some alternate overs or something too, if you want to get in there. Or
Power play points could be interesting
yeah, I was gonna
too,
say because there's gonna be a
honestly.
lot of power plays, and it
And I
feels like
do
there's
think,
gonna be a lot of power plays.
yeah, and I do think the Devils' power plays kind of trended a little low. Like they were like top all year. Like when Jack Hughes is going, I feel like it's still a pretty damn good unit. So yeah, I don't know. That could be an interesting look. Those numbers are always really tough too. You don't really know where they're going to open, so tough to give out targets. But yeah, I think that actually could be a pretty good angle.
I'm going to take credit for helping us get there with my great philosophical question of bouncing it back to you guys for what we wanted to see versus Pittsburgh. But I could see too, Leboff, you make a good point about if
I think there's more of a chance of that, by the way, too. Talking about the game on Tuesday night, if they lose, right? They'll be like, all right,
mhm.
screw it, let's just
Could be a lot of
take our
running
piece.
around,
Yeah.
lead to out of position type
Yep.
nonsense overs, and so that's a game script that would be exciting as well for that Wednesday night. I think it's a TNT game, whatever. So I that would be the best. That'd be the most fun avenue. But then you look at these two teams, and sometimes New York can kind of suck the life out of you, and the Devils can not show up. So I think the power play points avenue following Nick in the app is probably the best for that. And if anything, a little over.
Okay. I guess the next two would be the headliners on this 5 game slate. They are both good games here. Tampa and Toronto is where we'll head next. The Leafs coming off of a win against the Panthers on Monday night. The Bolts had their point streak snapped by the Detroit Red Wings. 6 points separate these two teams. So, if Tampa had any inkling on catching them, I don't think either team would care at all if you just put their names in a hat and drew their opponents in round one. I really don't think it matters. But that's going to be what's being sold as terms of in terms of like hyping up this game. Tampa's been much improved. I think like just the way that they've needed to win games has become a lot easier by over the past few weeks. Like they're not built anymore to just dominate teams from start to finish at 5-on-5 or special teams. It's now a lot more like a poor man's version of what we think of with the Rangers, and they're getting better goaltending out of Andrei Vasilevsky, and I think that's obviously noteworthy. The additions of Duclair and Dumba have put people into better roles. And I also think, and I wanted to touch on this with Tampa just broadly as well. Um, they have players like bit part players, Mikey Asimont, like Nick Perbix, Darren Radish, like these guys. They played a good big roles last year for them down the stretch, but I think there's something to be said about just like those kind of players who are clearly NHL caliber, just getting better, and they're playing in a good system where they will like their improvement should be much more like linear in a situation like Tampa than in kind of spots where you're like, ooh, that team struggled or whatever. So I don't I do think that there's a chance that people underrate Tampa's depth a little bit now, because I think those players will get better with more and more reps. And confidence from like the staff, etc. Uh, all this is to say, like I think in a game that's priced pretty close, I would lean towards Tampa here. The Leafs have been good of late, getting saves from Sammy, playing a strong 5-on-5 game, and Matthews has picked his scoring back up. But I think that this game is pretty close to a coin flip with a lot of the extenuating circumstances here. So. Uh, I I'd be on Tampa here, Nick, if I had to pick.
Yeah, I think we're getting the right price at anything better than plus 110 to play the Bolts. They have kind of come around a little. I was happy to finally fade them correctly last night, but they have been playing better. I do still think they're going to have more flaws. I really question if Dumba's going to be able to keep playing this kind of a role effectively. Love Darren Radish. I think that was a good call, but to me, this just looks like one of those things. I think you're getting a pretty good number. You know Tampa's going to bring it. These games are always super competitive. It feels very coin flippy. The Lightning still have an edge in goal. They've been playing much better of late. And then also the other thing for the Leafs to kind of like a big part of it, as much as they've managed it well, but they don't have Marner. And I don't know if Riley's coming back or not for this, but it's not like we're talking about the Leafs at full strength here at all. Their power play has taken a notable drop off since it was kind of happening before Marner left, but I think that's the main thing that's kind of driven how long it's dropped off for. So it feels to me like with their power play being kind of as modest as it is right now, that this one should be pretty even strength. You get Vasilevsky in the one goal. I feel like the avenues are definitely there for the Lightning. And yeah, plus 110 seems like a pretty good time to take a chance on them.
Yeah, I'm on the Lightning here too. They're still plus 114 is the best number on them at the time of recording. So echo what you say, Nick, on anything above plus 110. And really this seems, like you said, a 50-50 type game. This is a Toronto team that I think should get a lot of credit for the way that they've played in Marner's absence and Riley's absence. And they've gotten a lot of flack, right, for, team A and team B here. They're like the core four versus everybody else. And those guys have played well. Look at the way McMahon stepped up, Holmberg, like you name it. We're quite losers for paying as much attention as we do to the Leafs ins and outs of their lineups, but they get a lot of credit for that. And this is a Tampa team that is kind of similar to the Leafs when the Leafs are missing bodies, and that they have a great first line, and then it's kind of like, okay, can the rest of this group figure it out? I think the Leafs, it's not luck boxy, but I'm waiting for like kind of the jig to be up with how well that these bottom line guys are playing. So, and then obviously too, the advantage in net. I think a lot of Leafs fans expected Wold to just kind of take the job when he came back, and there's still some question marks in the Leafs net. Shocker, but all that to basically lead into, I think, because of the edge in net and the way that these teams profile more similarly with the Marner's absence, that I'm willing to take the plus money.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly think the Leafs are the better team. Like I really do. But you also have to consider who's out of the lineup. And we'll always say, you guys know I'll always say it. And I was right last year that the Leafs actually knocked them off. But no one will ever credit this team. They're 21-9-1 since January 20. They're fifth in expected goals. Like they're playing like a contender. But I also think that what's kind of going on is well credited when you consider like the shortages in the lineup. And then yeah, Tampa has been playing really, really well. So I don't really think you need to like kind of downgrade the Leafs to think this is just a good number. These teams always play each other close. It felt like all those games last year in the playoffs were a good indication that you're probably happy to take either side if you can get plus 110. And I feel like that's kind of still the way to look at this one.
Yeah. Yeah. If you just can simply say, like, if you play this matchup in Toronto without Mitch Marner, Morgan Riley banged up, and you just look at the Leafs blue line, you say, yeah, I'd take that and run. On the Bolts, the other headliner is Oilers at Stars, Edmonton plus 100, Dallas minus 120. At home, this total at 6.5. The Stars, we've seen a lot of long winning streaks over the course of the season, over any NHL season. I think Dallas's current 7-game winning streak in terms of like what it's done earned them some breathing room in a very tight Central Division race. They still could come out of the weeds to win the President's Trophy. I think it's the quietest 7-game winning streak of the season so far, which is crazy because of where we are at the campaign, but they're doing it. Now they take on the Oilers. I think this looks just about right. I think that these two teams at where they are right now, I know Edmonton, like people are kind of wavering a bit on them, is you know, you could make an argument for either one of these teams to be the favorite on neutral ice, is what I'm trying to say, and I think that's what the line tells you. The one thing I want to note about the Oilers is down the stretch, I think they're going to be a team you want to bet against early. If you think that they are a way, too expensive as a favorite, you're going to want to bet them early because I think they're going to manage their roster quite a bit in terms of like resting players. They're embarking on or they just started a stretch where they're going to be playing 10 games in the last 18 days of the regular season, including a back-to-back on the last 2 days. I think one of those games is Colorado as well. And then the playoffs start on Saturday. So they play on the Thursday, which is the last day of the regular season, and then the playoffs inexplicably are starting on that Saturday. So 2 days later, the Oilers won't play on that Saturday, but they'll probably play on Sunday. I think that they're going to be a team that rotates some important bodies out in and out of the lineup. So just keep that in mind as we get down towards the end of the season, and just make sure you think about where those spots will come because you'll be able to catch some big numbers if they are resting players and deciding that Connor McDavid's Art Ross race isn't as important as making sure he's fresh and healthy for the round one of the playoffs. Nick, anything on Stars and Oilers?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the oil or the over. I actually thought we'd probably get like better than even money on 6.5. So I'm definitely circling that one. I look at the way that the Stars match up versus the Oilers, and I still think Dallas's greatest upside is obviously going to be their offense this year. Ettinger was better over that road trip, and they won some lower scoring games for once, but I think those were more of an indicator on like who they played, like when you're playing like a Canucks and some of these other teams. Whereas I still feel like when they match up versus a team like Edmonton, we're going to see a high pace out there, should see some goals. So I kind of like the over, but it's also one where, I was a little surprised to see it set this high. So the book was kind of out on it a little bit. And I'm kind of debating if I want to like pay the fee on what I think is not a great price.
Yeah, when the numbers dropped today, I had the same thing in mind because of Dallas's offense, and then you can pretty much kind of set your watch to the Oilers offense. So it was I because of my belief in Dallas's offense, I'm like, ooh, is this gonna be a little bit mispriced? And it turns out no fun. It wasn't. I think Dallas is better than Edmonton if they were playing in some neutral ice bubble with no travel or anything like that. I would lean Dallas. But in terms of the price, I just think Leboff, you talked about the win streak. It's Dallas coming off a road trip, now playing Edmonton. Seems like it's all aligned for the win streak to end here, especially the Oilers coming off the loss to St. Louis. So I feel like the price is just right. If I had to bet it, I actually would bet the Oilers at the even money price, but it's just really tight. I think the odds makers kind of nailed it on this one, which again, no fun, unfortunately.
Yeah, and these two are priced perfectly evenly. Most books. I'm looking at Bet365 right now. They're both plus 700 to win the cup. So that kind of works right to your point. I actually still think, and I know we've pumped up the Stars a lot, I still think the Oilers are a hair better just because the one thing that I like that seems to be flying under the radar is that when you get into the playoffs, and we've seen it the last couple of years, and the Oilers had significantly worse rosters at those points, McDavid and Draisaitl are going to play like 25 minutes some games and just rack points, and they can get by doing that. I know it's not ideal, but I think the fact that they actually could lean on kind of smaller or like less minutes from the bottom six makes them better. They haven't really had to do that this year, which is perfect because, ideally that'll help Draisaitl and McDavid be fresh when they need to. But I think that's the one reason that makes me view them as like a slightly better team still when the Stars are definitely a little bit more rounded. But I guess the other huge X factor is going to be whether or not Ettinger gets himself going in the playoffs. I think that's obviously going to be a really determining factor in how far the Stars go.
Okay. On to Kraken and Kings next. Seattle plus 150 in LA. The Kings minus 185.5 total here, and a massive game all of a sudden for Los Angeles. It looked like the West was pretty much done and dusted in terms of the playoff race, but the St. Louis Blues, man, we talked about them so much like early on in the season that we thought that this team could have been a mess. I think I even talked about 66-1 on St. Louis to finish with the worst record in the NHL, which was an absolutely terrible idea. Not just because St. Louis is where they are, but just how bad the other teams are.
Come on, we forgot about that. You're good.
Oh, no, I mean, look, it was that was
Hey, we
an
gave them
embarrassing.
out to miss when they were whatever, like
Yeah.
actually pretty well situated in there. So
But yeah, St. Louis is 3 points behind Los Angeles. The Kings, this is their game in hand, at least for the time being. The Blues are off and don't play again until Thursday night against Nashville. And then this is an amazing schedule for the Blues coming up. So they got the Preds, the Sharks, the Ducks, and the Blackhawks. And is their next 4 games. So if they can get something out of that Preds game, like look out, all of a sudden, the Blues could still be like neck and neck and make this into an interesting race. Um, I actually, the more I think about it, the more I like Seattle here. I know Los Angeles lost 3 in a row, so maybe we're getting in at the wrong time, but and they've generally been impressive since the All-Star break. And they really only had that one kind of part of their campaign where they look dreadful. But aside from that, it's been more good than bad. But they are a type of team that just is built to play very tight, close games, and a bounce here or there, or one mistake here or there, or a goaltender doesn't have his A game with them is an issue. Seattle will be more than happy to play that kind of game. And I think at plus 150, even on the road with a dead in the water Kraken team, I'm gonna probably be looking that way, Nick.
yeah, I do think the Kraken have played a little bit better than people think. So that's maybe the one factor here. I'm a little indifferent. I do want to see if Dano returns. That second line really had been great, and it felt like they found configurations that were working out pretty well. So while he's not the biggest name, he's always been a pretty good two-way guy, and it seemed like he was kind of a critical part of the lineup. And that it hasn't worked as good since then. The other one I'm a little interested in, and it's obviously partly because we're looking at a total of 5.5 in a good game or a lower scoring game script, but I'm tempted by Shane Wright. Just because of where he's playing, his offensive upside. I do kind of view it as one of those things you're probably not finding a guy like that at plus 650 too often to score a goal. So I don't hate that. It feels like one of those things. I think it's in with a bit of a better shot. He looked respectable versus San Jose, playing second line. So I don't mind that. I think that's definitely one option. And I was also kind of tempted by just going with Dubois. He's also looked better and he's getting better usage. If Deno was out of the lineup, I would definitely kind of have him circled as a guy you could play in some props as well.
I want to bet LA so bad. It just was a little too expensive for my liking. I continue to not think very highly of Seattle. I group them more as a better like bottom tier team. Like they're, I guess we're or bottom tiers. Do we even have like San Jose in there? Are they just like in the AHL top tier or whatever you want to call it? So
They
I,
really are in their own tier now.
yeah, like so when I say bottom, I don't really mean it like that. In LA with losing 3 in a row and road trip just wasn't great. So you can't really come home and take a deep breath here. You have to capitalize on the opportunity of the Seattle team coming in here. But the fact that Seattle wants to kind of play the same game that LA does, it's just I see it going to overtime more than I do like laying it and feeling good about an LA win.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm kind of looking at that does make me a little interested in maybe the Kings to win with a shutout, which I know is kind of contradictory to what I just said, but the Kraken versus in their last 5 games versus playoff teams, 0 goals versus the Stars, 1 goal versus the Knights, 1 goal versus the Preds, and 1 goal versus the Caps. And then they got shut out by the Jets on the 8th. So the lack of offensive upside has been really real. That's obviously why Rates come in and gotten a spot on the second line and second power play right away because there's just nothing going on. And it's going to be interesting to see. I think just kind of on a broader subject thing as we wrap up the year, and we're probably not going to touch on the Kraken too many more times, how much they bounce back next year. I think that I was wrong thinking that they would blow up last year when they were kind of more obviously than I had thought, a team that was due for offensive regression. But it's funny how much this season has mirrored their inaugural season. It's been like identical, where all year people have kind of thought their underlying process is pretty good and they were probably due to win some closer games. They looked decent. And then they were on the high end of everything last year. I think they could be a team that trends up a little bit next season. So you guys know I love the Kraken, but I'm hoping that they do bounce back and that I'm not just kind of being biased here. But yeah,
My only response to that is I believe you are right in all of the due for positive offensive regression. However, in the NHL, like these guys are NHL players, the underlying stats can say that they play teams hard or deserve better. But my defense to that would be, that's more of a product of them not having a legit goal scorer than it is like, hey, these. It seems almost like they're like a little engine that like, hey, these guys are due. Come on, but it's like,
yeah,
well,
it's true.
how many teams do we see like that happens throughout a 82 game season, but they have a Pasternak, they have a Panarin, just go shoot you out of trouble. Like
They have nothing like that. And the one thing too that really did undo their whole season was Pospisil just taking Dunn right out, because it is only one guy, but I do think Dunn is one of the bigger needle movers in the entire league. Like he's so good in both ends of the rink, and he's so good at driving play, great on the power play. So yeah, I do feel like that Pospisil hit really did cost them a couple points here for sure.
Okay, let's wrap up with Canucks and Coyotes. Vancouver will also be on night two of a back-to-back. They're in Vegas on Tuesday night. Minus 162 for the Canucks right now. Coyotes plus 136. This total at 6.5. That means that we'll see Arturs Silovs. Is that how we pronounce his name? I'm not totally sure. With
that's
Demko
how we're
out.
gonna do it now.
Yeah,
That's
Demko out. Demko's out. Smith playing on Tuesday night in Vegas. So that'll be the situation, which I think makes Arizona like palatable at this price. But I mean, we say this is a classic line on these Wednesday slates. On most nights, this would be a game I would look right past. I would say this, and I guess you guys can touch on it as well if you have a best bet. Like my favorite bet on the board by a wide margin would be Tampa Bay at plus 110. And then I'd put the Kraken behind them, then the Coyotes. So I guess you can look at it that way. Anything here, Canucks and Coyotes, Nick?
Yeah, I was leaning towards the over. The Coyotes have been playing some high scoring hockey. They're getting going. I thought we'd get a decent number because it's a Canucks game and the Canucks have been trending so low. So I don't hate the over. It's a lot like the other spot we talked about on the show where it's like the Stars game where I was a little surprised. I still think better than even money at 6.5. I think I'll just bite and play. I look at it and I feel like a lot of these low scoring Canucks games have been the teams they're playing. Their offense is due for some positive regression. Um, it's a
and
little
they
away
do
from
have goal scorers, and they do have goal
they
scorers.
do. That's the thing. Like I think they're somewhere between the offensive team that everyone knew was lucky early on. I think if you're still debating that, you probably need to just give it up, I think, because it's been pretty clear that they weren't. But I also think they can definitely score on the Coyotes. And then, like Mike said, with Seelovs in, I think and Arizona's been playing really good offensively. Saw them put up 5 on the Rangers, and I think this is kind of a similar spot where they could maybe catch them a little off guard. So I don't mind that. I'll note. I think that stat that I put in the article and texted you guys today is pretty interesting. In 14 straight games versus playoff opponents, the Canucks haven't beaten a single team that scored 3 or more on them. So basically, they haven't had a high scoring win versus a good team recently. But I also think how many of those games versus like the Kings and Stars kind of works towards maybe a play on the over in this spot. So I don't mind that look at all. I think it could have some value for sure.
And also too, I look at that stat as a compliment to Vancouver. Honestly,
It
like
is and it isn't. They lost a lot of those games. I probably could have put the record with it. But like we saw them lose 3-2 and 3-1 to the Kings last week. And I would say that either one of those games could have gone the Canucks' way. But I think that's also the point, is that what they're doing is kind of guaranteeing them a coin flip chance versus good teams, but I don't think much more. So that'd probably be the knock on them. But at the start of the year, I think they would have happily taken that if you said they're going to play a style that like probably gives them an honest chance versus any team in the league.
Yeah, I saw that we're probably going to get Seelov here, and he played in that Anaheim game, and that they won 3-2. So my concern about the total was that did they just insulate him really well, knowing that this is excuse me, this is essentially their third string goalie. So that I guess that was you know we see teams tend to do this, make sure that they protect a guy like that really well. So I don't know. I love our Yotes, and we're still hanging on to that over point total. So I guess I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
it was
excited.
priced.
It's hard because I'm so torn on our Yotes, right? This is the part where you're almost like a fan. I'm just hoping and praying that it goes well for them.
Well, and it is. And if you have that bet, you have like a full play on pretty much this game and all the Yotes ones. Because I looked and it was priced evenly at 74.5 on the sites that still had it up. So it's
Yeah.
very much just coming right down to the wire. Also a good kind of example of how much getting the better number does matter, because those like 77s, 76 and a halves that were out there at the end of, or like right before the season started, are pretty much just dead, unfortunately.
Okay, that'll do it. I guess right before we go, if you guys you don't even have to go into why your favorite bet on the night, Bolts.
Yeah, definitely Bolts. I think not many other contenders, but let's go Bolts.
Yeah, these hard nights, it's just leave off. Like, what the hell? We ask for more games on a Wednesday, and then we
I
can't
know.
even rise to the occasion.
I know. We didn't even get like
People are
a
tough
better
though.
number.
Sometimes we get complaining that there's too many bets on the
Yep.
show,
Yeah.
So it is what it
Uh,
is.
okay. So we'll be back Thursday night. Another big night on the docket as we head towards the end of the regular season. We got 9 games to go through Thursday. Then we'll also be recording our Power Plays video for Bet365, which previews our favorite bets for Saturday night. And that slate has 11. There's 20 games between Saturday and Sunday this weekend in the NHL, so that'll be fun. And obviously the playoffs are right around the corner. So until tomorrow, thank you for listening. Thank you for rating and reviewing and subscribing. If you haven't, please do so. For Nick and Tim, I'm Michael. Thank you to our producer, Noah. We'll see you next time.